What's going on, guys? My name is Mac Dunford, and today I'm going to be presenting to y'all about U.S. versus Nixon from 1974, which is also the case that derives from the Watergate scandal and the Nixon tapes. So, a little bit of background information on President Nixon. President Nixon was the 37th President of the United States, and in 1972, he was re-elected in one of the largest electoral landslides in history against George McGovern. And in 1973, he abolished the military draft and ended U.S. involvement in Vietnam. And to this day, President Nixon is the only president to resign from office while he's still active. So a little bit of background on the Watergate arrests. So on June 17th, 1972, there are 5 men that are arrested at the Watergate complex in D.C. And 4 of those men were active in the CIA. And the 5th one was the security chief in the committee to re-elect the president, and that's also known as CREEP, and we're going to get into CREEP a little bit more later. So, as the FBI began investigating on these 5 arrests, they found 2 men who were co-conspirators behind the arrests. The first one, when this loads, was E. Howard Hunt Jr. He was a former CIA officer, highly ranked, and he was on the White House staff. So when they found out he was a conspirator behind it, it started bringing up questions if President Nixon is involved in any shape or form. And the second man behind it was G. Gordon Liddy, who was a former FBI agent who worked for CREEP, which was the committee to re-elect the president. So more questions started popping up. Is Nixon involved in this in any shape or form? And at the same time that the Watergate arrests happened, Liddy had eyes to break into McGovern's Democratic headquarters right before the 1972 presidential election. So the Nixon tapes happened when Nixon when he was president, and essentially they were secret tapes that he recorded from the White House. And on June 23rd, 1972, President Nixon ordered through these secret channels and messages that the FBI compresses their investigation on the Watergate arrests. And about a year or so later, over 3,700 hours of his secretly recorded messages were discovered. And through these messages, it was shown that Nixon was involved in the cover-up of the Watergate arrests. So we're going to get into the trial a little bit. One key figure in the trial was Warren E. Burger, and Warren Burger was the Supreme Justice of the United States during this trial, and he's the one who eventually convicts Nixon. So getting into the actual trial, Nixon and his attorneys knew that Nixon was guilty the whole time. So what they essentially did was just argue with the Supreme Court to at least have a trial going. The first argument they said was that due to the doctrine of separation of powers, President Nixon shouldn't even be tried because the judicial branch has no business being in the executive branch's problems. But the court responded saying that this whole thing about the executive problems does raise a constitutional question, and on a legal standpoint, the judicial branch is the one who interprets the Constitution. And they cited the decision from Marbury v. Madison, which stated that, and I quote, "It is emphatically the province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is." So essentially, regardless of what branch of the military or government it is, the judicial branch has the right of interpreting it from a legal standpoint. So the next argument that Nixon's attorney stated was that Nixon was entitled to absolute executive privilege. Now, the court stated that he was entitled to executive privilege, but not absolute executive privilege, because Nixon was the president of a democratic government, not like a dictator or anything. And the court was dead set on providing a full and fair trial for both sides in order to create that equality between the 2 branches of the government. So the ruling for a Supreme Court case was really fast, and it came in less than 3 weeks, which is ridiculously fast for a Supreme Court case. And to summarize what Chief Justice Burger stated was that President Nixon is not entitled to full executive privilege because due to checks and balances, due to the government having to be equal in all 3 branches, he's not allowed to have that absolute executive privilege. And he's also forced to surrender the tapes that were found by the FBI. So right after the trial, the House Judiciary Committee began working on 3 articles of impeachment against President Nixon, and they used those Nixon tapes as the main form of evidence to support his impeachment. Now, President Nixon knew he was going to get impeached, and he didn't want everyone to go through the pain of an impeachment trial. So because of that, he resigned from office and became the first president to resign from office. And after he resigned, Gerald Ford was sworn in as the next president of the United States. These are my works cited. If you have any questions, just let me know, and have a great day.